Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our second episode in the marriage series. Today, we are going to be talking about the girl's perspective in regards to marriage. Before we start, I just want to give a disclaimer. We are not scholars. This is simply just a conversation, and we are all Muslim adults here. This is not representative of all Muslims, and everyone is different. With that being said, we hope you enjoy and you share your thoughts in the comment section. Before we get into the marriage questions, I want everyone to introduce yourselves.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Maheen. I'm a third year nursing student at Western University. I live in Mississauga. Um, I like I run a few side hustles, so like I do henna, I do baking, and makeup as well. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Okay, hey, assalamu alaikum. My name is Sarah. Oh my God, I sound so white. Sada. My name is Sada. I was born in Canada. I was actually raised out on the east coast of Canada, where there really isn't a Muslim community. If you know where New Brunswick is, well, congratulations, part of the east coast of Canada. I'm currently in London, Ontario, working. I studied engineering, and I'm from a North African background.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Sara too. You can call me Halabi though. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, really?
Okay, so now we'll move on to the prompts. First of all, do you guys even want to get married?
Yeah, why not?
Yes.
Yes.
Same. I want to get married too.
Guys, we're so lame.
It's okay. But why do you
Yes.
want to get married? Why do you want to get married? Like, how do you guys know that you're ready?
I don't think it's about being ready. It's about like knowing what you want in life. So I feel like once you have your goals and priorities straight, I think that's when you know that you want to get when that's when you know you'll be ready. Like I feel like we all are like right now, like yeah, we want to get married, but we don't really know that we're ready yet. So it really depends on where we are in life.
I think as Muslims, we really need to understand what marriage means and what it entails. I know this is going to be probably your next prompt, so I'll leave those points to the whole romanticizing of marriage. But really, for young Muslim women, I think it's understanding what Islam entails in terms of what marriage is. So if you go back into the religion, do your research, understand, then you can determine if you're ready or not.
100%. Do you have anything to say, Halabi?
You guys pretty much covered it all. Actually, it's just about not there being necessarily a certain time or an ideal time, but rather more a feeling of readiness. And yeah.
Yep, 100%. I agree with that. You need to be mentally ready, emotionally ready, and at the end of the day, it's not about being ready, but like you need to make sure you check those boxes. Like, are you ready in life to move on? Are you ready to have someone by your side and share your life with them? Right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So we're next question. Many young adults romanticize the concept of marriage in their early 20s and make it seem like marriage qualifies you to enter this utopic experience of never-ending bliss. Takes on this.
So I feel like the question itself is a little bit leading in a direction that like it shouldn't be leading in, but um I don't think many people do think of marriage as an experience of never-ending bliss. I know more people who are in their early 20s and think of marriage as something that is a lot more heavier and something that they're trying to avoid at the moment. So it's like they think of it more of as a really big commitment, and it's not necessarily romanticizing it, um, but it's the fact that all these cultural like connotations related to marriage get tied up with what marriage really means. And so I see a lot of young women who are trying to avoid this topic for as long as they can because they think that marriage is a really big commitment in terms of like they think it's something that might take away their independence and their so that's why they think they're not necessarily ready for it. So my take on this is that I think that young adults should try to look at marriage not necessarily as like a romanticizing way, but like a good aspect. And I think that getting married in your early 20s is actually beneficial if you do know what marriage means Islamically and you know the rights between you and your to be husband.
Mhm.
So that's my
I
take.
just want to ask you a question. So, me- sorry.
Arona.
No, I just choked on my spit. Um, but okay, I want to ask you a question. Um, not many people, but a few people, they romanticize marriage in the aspect that, oh, I can finally escape from my home. I can finally escape from my parents, and I'm gonna have the freedom to do whatever I want. They go with that intention, and
Mhm.
they go with the intention that my husband's not gonna say anything to me. I can do whatever I want, and
Mhm.
he's just gonna love me for who I am, and he's not gonna scold
Mhm.
me. They actually don't have, they haven't seen other people's experiences, and
Um,
yeah.
I feel like it's a fair way to think about marriage that way because it shouldn't be otherwise. You shouldn't be expecting your husband to make you compromise your life, right? You shouldn't be expecting your husband to um, scold you, right? You shouldn't be expecting that way, and you shouldn't be expecting your independence to be lost because of marriage. Um, Romanticizing it is one thing where you think that everything is going to be perfect and you're going to escape your like I guess home and like you'll be able to do whatever you want. You won't. You will have to make some compromises because you are entering someone else's life, right? And you are going to share your lives together.
Mhm,
There will be some compromises, but I feel like it's not unfair to think of like the benefits you will be getting out of it because that is your right in
mhm,
Islam as well. Um, to be able to work, to be able to follow your goals, your
mhm,
ambitions. Looking for a right partner is something that's really important and who has a good family that will support your decisions.
mhm.
So I think whoever is feeling that marriage will be something that will support them in the future and support their career, their life and goals, I think that's not like I think that's fair to think about it that way.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. It's just that some people, they come in and they're like, I just want an escape, marry me to whoever. Like they'll say
Yeah,
that, like
that's the wrong way to think
that's the
about.
wrong way.
Yeah.
Like they'll literally
Yeah.
just sacrifice anything to like escape. They're
Okay, yeah, that's a different thing, and that's something where you have to look at yourself individually and see what is actually causing you to feel that way in your current circumstances and what you can do to change it. If you can't do anything to change it right now, um, it's likely that in the future you won't be able to stand up for yourself.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, marriage shouldn't be looked at as like an escape. It's something completely entirely different. So.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, so on that note, what I was gonna point out on this, the way this question is worded in terms of romanticizing, I think it has a lot of cultural inference. So
Mhm.
for a lot of people like myself from a North African background, growing up, a lot of times was like, oh, I'd like to go to this place, or I'd like to do this or do that with my friends. And the answer was, yeah, when you get married, you can do it. So the whole romanticizing thing does kind of stem, in my opinion, from your upbringing. So for my parents to have told me that, it was always romanticized that, oh, okay, you know, by like 18 or 20, I'll get married and I can do whatever I want. I can go to my husband on to vacation to Australia, or I can my husband will let me go out with my friends or do this and that. So when you're brought up with that mentality, yes, it is
Yeah.
romanticized, unfortunately. In a lot of today's society, and I think in more of an East Asian background, I think the women have a lot more freedom. Again, I could be wrong. And again, it depends on the culture and how your parents brought you up. But to other people, it could be like Maheen said, they want to delay the marriage as long as possible because they realize they have so much freedom now. And having another partner come in means that that freedom is going to be compromised.
Yeah, I agree with Sada, especially when it comes to the, and Maheen, of course, when it comes to the cultural component, not just in our own cultures, but also in Western culture as well. Thinking of the man who's going to come save you, like in the Disney movies and stuff, and like people assuming that, you know, oh, finally, if I get married, I'll just be happy. Like they're miserable people. And then they're like, if I get married, I'm going to be happy. Chances are, like, once you get engaged, you'll be happy a little, but that will fade away because no one can give you happiness. You have to get happiness on your own.
Yeah.
So that's a part of the romanticizing, is like you have to develop yourself, be content as you are now, not needing to get married, but realizing that marriage is a privilege and that it's something that's going to add to your life, not make your life necessarily happy, etc. So I think that's the part of the romanticizing thing that, yeah, that I don't necessarily agree with, regarding whether young people should be married. Like, should they get married when they're young? Was that a part of the question?
Not yet. Oh my God, stop skipping.
Sorry, is that not yet?
No.
That's the next part. But I just wanted to add one thing actually
Not
on that.
done yet. Okay.
Oh my God. Okay, go Halabi.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, you are done.
No, I'm not done, but go ahead.
Then go. I thought you were done.
I think that's it. What's the like? Oh, another thing I wanted to add too, just to all my like younger sisters out there, if you get married at a younger age, like don't think that you've become like at another stage of maturity just like once you get that ring on your finger. Because I've noticed with some people, like they get married and the next day they're just like this new
mature human being all of a sudden.
Yeah, so yeah, that's all I wanted to add. Go ahead.
That's the I'm too good for you.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to add on that point just quickly is you hear this a lot in especially white society. You hear that don't expect to make your partner to make you happy. Be happy with yourself first. Love yourself first. I think from an Islamic perspective, I think what a lot of us are lacking, or at least for myself, is actually learn to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first. I think that is number one. We keep putting ourselves ahead of everyone, but really if you love God number one, everything else will make its way
I definitely
appropriately.
agree. Like self-love can, I think, only come from like a love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first, and like putting your faith and trust with him, and then everything else like falls into place. To be honest, I think that's the exact basis of everything. Like just maybe from my perspective, I'm not going to impose that perspective on anyone, but from like my perspective, like love for Allah, putting trust in Allah, that's what gives you like the ultimate happiness, because you know both good and bad in your life has a purpose in a sense when you put that trust to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So thank you for adding that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, think of this. I think it's an ayah in the Quran or something, that it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that if you walk to me, I will run to you. You know, like you make a, like even a tiny dua, he will come and run to you and he will bless you, you know? So yeah, so honestly, like be content with where you are, be strong, love yourself, and yeah, listen to what they said, because like that's amazing. And I also agree, like I didn't think about this, but the fact that romanticism comes from our culture. Like I didn't grow up in Pakistan or Afghanistan. I don't know what the culture is over there. I was born and raised here, and I was born and raised with um Disney movies, Cinderella, and all that kind of stuff. So constantly, even as a kid, I would be like, who's my Prince Charming? Who's my Prince Eric? You know?
The
So
idea gets implanted in us from such a young age that that's what we think the best, the ultimate type of happiness will come. And that's like the biggest lie. While marriage is important and it does create happiness, like in other aspects of your life, it's not the ultimate form of happiness. So
yeah. And I feel like now that I think about it, the fact that us girls, we were exposed to that more we
Mhm.
romanticize more, I guess, compared to guys.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Uh, what are your thoughts on getting married early or young? Many people underestimate the energy and effort marriage takes. Do you think it's slightly problematic to think this way?
Um, so the question is asking, is it slightly problematic to think that there's a lot of energy and effort put into it, or
Yeah.
oh, I think it does take energy and effort, but it can be easy.
Hmm.
It all depends on what, if you know what the meaning of marriage is, like Sarah said, and your rights, as well as the rights of your
Which one is
spouse.
right?
Um,
What?
Right.
I didn't hear that.
Which Sada is right, I said.
Listen,
oh,
I'm getting all the credit. Thank you.
Right. Kind of
Just
right.
both of the Sarahs are right. But I think getting married early is not problematic. I think it is beneficial. It does save you from a lot of like sins, and it can actually be beneficial for like um, for example, sometimes it is true, like all the things we're talking about, like culturally, that you can get more freedom from getting married, um, which it shouldn't be like that, but because these cultural things have been implemented for so many decades, that it's sort of hard to get out of this thinking and this mindset. I've seen that personally from my experience as well, like both of the Saras were saying. Uh, like, oh, when you get married you can go do this, when you get married you can do that. Even with like my, like something I've seen with like my baking business is like, oh, when you get married, you can focus on it more. Right now, you need to do stuff as the daughter of the house, right? You need to take care of everyone. Um, when you get married, you can focus more on this, you can focus more on that. And so I feel like this is something that we can't necessarily escape as much as we try to. It's something we have to try to like accept and then try to change in future generations. So like it's something that in the future, like I know how I'm going to be raising my children differently just because of all the things that I've been through, right? So getting married early in that sense is like, I think it would be beneficial, like just for like thinking about myself, I think it would be beneficial because I'd have someone who would be able to support me through all the things that I want to do. But at the same time, a big factor is finding the right kind of spouse and finding the right person who is on their deen, right? There's like so many factors that come into play when you're looking for a spouse, and there's a lot of like cultural uh, ways of looking for spouses too, because in some cultures, for example, like in South Asia, they look at the socioeconomic status of the families, and you have to make sure that the guy's family is more like well off than the girl's family. It's like a lot of things that come into play. And if you look towards it, like according to Islam, then I think that's the best way to look at it because you'll know both of your rights. And I think if both of the people are on the right same page and have discussed like Islam and the rights of each other, then I think getting married early would be beneficial.
So I think the answer to this question again, Maheen, you brought a really great points. In my opinion, I think the answer is subjective to the
Mm-hmm.
individual. And I say that because of the culture and society we live in today. So our grandparents, for example, my grandmother got married at 15 or 16.
Oh yeah.
Am I going to say that's a great choice? Absolutely. For the time that they were in, that was a great choice because that's what they were doing. And the people and the women at the time and the men were also very mature and culturally aware of their responsibilities as well as religiously aware. And again, my grandparents grew up in Algeria. So there was war at the time. They couldn't get education. So it's not a factor of, oh, how much money do they have or how educated are they? It's a factor of, are they responsible? Are they from a good family? Can they provide and take care of this woman? So in today's society, I would base it on the maturity of the people in question. So for a female, in my own personal view, I would have loved to be married at 18. I could have had a 10-year-old by now, which to me is amazing. You're a young mom. You get to connect with your children. You get to spend more time with them, inshallah, depending on your lifespan, obviously. But it was always something that I would have preferred. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't write that for me, that's fine. But if somebody else at the time, or someone who is 18 or 20 who wants to get married young and is aware of the responsibilities and what that entails, then I would say absolutely go for it, especially in today's society where you see everybody dating. Everybody has boyfriends and you're looking around, you're like, oh, I wish I could date, or I wish I had a partner. And it's like, well, it's not halal. So being married young means that you have your partner young and you get to grow with them.
Yeah.
At a much earlier stage, you get to develop with them. At 18, at 20, you're still growing. Sure enough, you are not kind of intellectually ready to support a marriage and take care of a marriage and children if that is your thought process. So again, depends on the individuals, depends who's available at the time. Again, I said I wanted to get married at 18. I grew up in New Brunswick, so the pool of participants was very small. So I didn't really have much of many optimal choices to go with. And again, everything is nasib in the end. We go back to that. So it wasn't meant for me. But yes, I think marriage at a young age for someone who is mature to be married is an excellent choice, especially with our day-to-day society.
Yeah, so I'm just going to reiterate what you guys said in a different kind of way. So a lot of people nowadays, they're sort of against younger people getting married, although our culture, promotes this idea of early marriage is better. And then they look at, older girls who don't get married as reduced produce. But there is this idea too that, you should be finished your education and you should have a career. That's like the ideal time to get married. But I'm going to problematize that like Sada and Maheen did, because again, even though there is this common developmental stages we go through as human beings and our brains are being developed, the prefrontal cortex doesn't develop until like the early 20s, right? And all these different things, that doesn't mean that somebody can get married. I think you can get married at an early age, but this is besides the point, young age or older age. I think what's most important is individual characteristics, like Sada mentioned. So a person's personality and their wisdom. And from my personal experience, like I've met individuals who in their 30s are not as wise or mature as a person who's in their early 20s. So I think if they have that maturity and wisdom and have this, better outlook on life, like a more holistic outlook on life, and aren't so quick to believe in these ideal versions of what marriage is, which usually isn't. Like marriage, like the second part of the question about, younger people being maybe more likely to not know what marriage comes with. That may be true for some, but for some others, they learn from other people's experiences. And I think like one of the most important things is for people to realize that marriage, there's always going to be conflict. Whether you're like the most perfect couple, conflict is inevitable, but it's how conflict is dealt with, which um, predicts the success of your marriage. So there's certain I think communication is key, and I think that's why a lot of relationships lack, is the ability to disagree but communicate that in a way that doesn't cause conflict but causes more like understanding instead. So you can disagreement is fine, but it's how we communicate. And I think if we like all took courses on that, like how to communicate properly, and to avoid like hurting others in our speech to get our point across, I think we would like our divorce rates would be much lower, because I feel like that's one of the major problems in relationships. Um, yes, and I like when I was younger in my early 20s, like I did have like I did want to be married, like I wanted to have a relationship and all these things. But now that I'm older, I'm like I actually wasn't ready. Like looking back at it now and like what I've learned and like I felt like at that time I could have got married, could have what like got by, but I feel like now I would be like much more effective as a wife because of the things I know. And I feel like every year I learn something new and we're constantly developing. And another thing I wanted to talk about too, and I think Maheen and Sada touched on this as well, is like when you are going to get married at an early age, you want to make sure it's to somebody who is going to support you in your life. Let's say, like, I don't even care if you're done school or not. Like, you can be in school still and get married. That's fine as long as that person is helping you. Like I said, he can't give you all that happiness. You have to find that on your own, right? But as long as he's supporting you to succeed and lifting you up rather than bringing you down, like that's the main quality you want to look at. And like not just in terms of your success in school, but also your level of religiosity and like all these different aspects. So I think that's important when looking at it. If you're in a relationship with somebody and they're putting you down and like making you further away from your religion or making you further away from reaching your educational goals or your work goals, that's when you need to like step away from that, no matter how much emotion is involved. Like that's a clear indicator that you need to move away and yeah, rethink your situation. And I think that's all I have to say about that.
I should have gotten married at 18.
Okay.
I think Sada brought up a good point, honestly, about the times, like our social context, and
Yeah,
that
definitely.
plays a role.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's 100% true. I do actually feel like our grandparents were actually more mature than
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
we are now
Mhm.
as people. Like they're a lot more mature at like 15 compared to now
yeah,
15-year-olds are like.
Mhm.
So that does have like a huge impact. And I feel like nowadays, like, yes, there are a lot of mature people, but I feel like there's even more immature people. So
yeah.
including
Absolutely.
myself sometimes. No, I'm just joking. But
Yeah.
yeah. Um yeah,
So, I agree with. So I'm just gonna answer the entire question. I think the way I've been brought up, the people that I've been surrounded by, the people that I'm friends with, the experiences that the things that I've experienced, I think I would like to get married young because I feel like the society that I am in, the way the Western culture that I'm in, I'm seeing everyone constantly like, dating and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I don't want that, but I want to be with someone and I want to grow with them. And I want to be with someone who like like Halabi said, someone that supports me.
you're
And
both
what? Did I,
Okay, hi everyone. I'm your host today.
did I freeze?
Yeah.
Oh, hold up. What a pain in the butt.
My grandma got married when
Yeah,
she
it
was like
was very
14.
normal back in the
That's
day, and honestly, like it's not a bad
And my
thing.
mom was married at 18.
But
and that's
that's the
another thing too I wanted to mention. Go ahead, Sada, and then I'll get
Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna quickly mention that it's a trend. Like with every generation, it's getting later. Like my grandparents were like 14, 15, and my parents
Because
24.
of like in terms of like careers as well, when we look at how careers are going, the direction they're going, like a few decades ago, people would have amazing jobs like being farmers. They would make a lot of money doing agricultural, doing like manual labor, right? But now as things are getting like
capital.
automated and like technology is growing, you need a lot more education to get just a normal job. Or if you're getting a manual labor job, it's like very underpaid. So you
But
can
even
see by the thing, like
even then, like back in those generations, they were very patient, and they were like بالعربي بنحكي راضيين بما أعطاهم الله. Like they were content with what God gave them. Like my
Yeah,
mom's family
definitely.
and my
Yeah.
dad's family were actually both very, very poor growing up. Like my
Yeah.
mother tells me about the meals that they had, or
Mm,
my father about how they didn't even have enough pairs of pants to go around, and they were big
yeah.
families, but they were content.
The global
And that's
ideology of capitalism, but
Yeah.
really, I feel like our human nature, we thrive off of simplicity. Like look at Ramadan, for
Yeah.
example. Like that simplicity aspect makes us enjoy things so much more and restarts us in a way. But
Mhm.
what I wanted to comment back on the question as well was like, yes, ideally it would be nice to like get married when you're younger, but at the end of the day, it's not really our choice. Like it's part of our choice, but it's more like nasib. So
absolutely.
regardless,
Yeah.
I feel like we should all be content with what we have. Like look at all the things we have, alhamdulillah rabbil
Alhamdulillah.
alameen.
Alhamdulillah.
And like when people focus on getting married, and that's like, you know, I need to get married, I need to do this, I need to do that, and not realize all the blessings they have,
Mhm.
it's sort of like really horrible because you're focusing on that one aspect you don't have when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with so much. And
Mhm.
just like focusing on what we have and making the best of our lives. And just like if that happens to come along when you're young, great. If it happens to come along when you're older, that's also great. But it's
Mhm.
not a necessity, I would argue. It is a
Mhm.
huge component of our deed, but we can definitely live and be content without it. But everything is nasib. Some people's nasib is not to get married. Some people don't
Yeah.
ever get married. Some people don't have kids. Does that mean we're supposed to be like sad? No, that means we're supposed to make the best of what we have and
Mhm.
make the best of our like gifts and provide that to the rest of society and the world. So yeah, just like focus on what you have now, and inshallah, when the time is right, your
Mhm.
Yeah.
nasib will come to you, inshallah. So
Yeah.
that's what.
Inshallah. Yeah.
Inshallah, yeah.
Just remember what Sarah Hamza. I'm gonna say Sarah and Sada. Just keep my life simple,
Oh my
okay?
God, I get to be
Yeah,
the white
yeah.
one.
You can
When
just call me Hadabi. Like everyone calls me Hadabi.
yeah, when Sarah just think of when Sarah said like, you know, you need to develop your relationship with Allah, and then Allah
Mhm.
subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless you with when things will like when it's meant to be. Everything is nasib. The things that you wish for, the things that you want, maybe it's better. It's gonna be better for you at a different time,
Yeah.
right?
Some
Uh,
people want to get married to this like one person. They're like, you know, oh my God, like I want to get married. They do salat al istikhara. They're so obsessed and like all these different things. And it turns out like that person's actually a horrible person. So Allah didn't bless you with him because your life would have been worse with him in it. Or
Mhm.
just might not be the person is bad. It might just be the person and his personality characteristics don't match with yours, and that
Mhm.
would have led to problems down the line. So always have trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the things that you want and don't get are for a greater purpose, whether that purpose is to avoid you hardship in the future or to teach you patience, like one or the
Mhm.
other, or both.
Yeah.
And again, you can get married and be very unhappy, and that could be a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Exactly.
So you just need to accept things as they come. And just one last point about the whole idea of marriage young. Yeah, like I say, I want to get married at 18 or 20 or whatever, but it's like sometimes you do have the pool of people, and it's like, oh, he doesn't make enough money. And then
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I don't want that life. And it's like, what are your real priorities in marriage? Because when
Mhm.
we compare our grandparents, they were getting married not based off of money. They were doing it because it was deen, like that was what was done at the time. So they just do it, and they're content with what God gave them.
go. Bismillah. Okay. Um, but yeah, everything that I started recording again, but I agree with everything that you guys said. There's pros and cons to it depends on the person, right? It depends on where you are at life, and it, it also depends on the situation and the circumstances that you're in. But yeah, we'll just move on. So what cues do you think a person should look within themselves to for them to see that they're ready to get married?
So I think Sara and Harabi, they both mentioned these um, already. We've been talking about it a lot, looking at how mature you are, regardless of your age or education level, the maturity level that you have, and and your knowledge towards the deen, and your goals, priorities, things like that. I think we have mentioned it a lot. If you want to go into detail, anybody, if you are open to.
Oh, I'll just give my perspective on this for this answer. I think one exercise to do, again, ask yourself, why do you want to get married? Make a list of why you think you're ready to get married, and make a list of what you're looking for in your potential spouse. And then go back to the dean or ask somebody of knowledge to go through the list with you, and they can tell you which ones are correct and which ones are incorrect. I think that's probably the best first step to understanding whether or not your priorities are in check or not.
Yeah, I agree with both Maheen and Sada. Um, I think that it's important, first of all, like I mentioned already, to be content with everything in your life, like both good and bad, and know that, yes, your life is going to change. Like you have to recognize, like, your whole life is going to change. Like, this is a new responsibility, and there's different things that will happen at that point of your life, and it's important to realize that instead of going
Mhm.
in blindsided and then finding out how all these things are different. So, what was the question again?
Actually, I'm going to add one more thing while Hadabi's trying to read the question that she should have known what she was answering. I'm just kidding. Um, Shoot, now I forgot what I was going to say. Okay.
So you need to look at your environment, look at your friends, look at the people that you're surrounded with. Are those people mature? Do you guys have mature conversations? The things that you do, are they halal or are they haram? Are they like, are you being a good member in society, or like, what are you doing with your life? You need to also focus on your environment, and you need to think about the decisions you've been making, and that can help you determine whether you're ready for marriage or not as well.
Determine what?
I think determine if you're ready.
I was just gonna say there's so many different types of marriages nowadays. So in our grandparents' time, marriage meant that you got married, the wife took care of the children, she had a lot of kids, she took care
Mhm.
of the house, the man took care of all the financials. Marriage in today's age is so diverse. There's the couples who both want to work, both want to provide for the family. There's the couples where they both work, the female still has her roles and the male still has his roles, but the female keeps all of her money, like it is in Sharia. Like,
Yeah.
you need to define what you want in a marriage. You need to be very clear on what type of
Mhm.
marriage you're looking for, and then create your criteria based on that. You cannot just go like, yeah, I want to get married to some tall blonde guy who makes $1 million. It's like, okay, but what kind of marriage do you want out of that? Is he going to provide everything? Are you going to be a stay-at-home mom? Like, what are you looking for? That needs to be very clear, because society today is very complex, because we're in this
Mhm.
whole world of capitalism and globalization.
Yeah.
And I think,
Um,
Sada, you really make it an important, just like important point that relates to a topic of great debate. Like, some may argue, I'm not saying myself like is arguing this, but some argue that, this whole idea of gender roles and like
Mhm.
how there's that blurring of the line, like, women now can do what men can do. And sort of that blurring of the gender roles is a bit problematic for some marriages, because some argue that men are losing like their masculinity in a way in a relationship. And some women are taking on that masculine role and the feminine role, and that adds complexities. And some say, this is problematic. So you need to see how you view that issue. And as
mhm.
Sasha said, clearly communicate that with the person, because you want to make sure you're on the same page. Some people don't believe in gender roles and some do. And So like some view, women are better at doing some things compared to men, and men
Mhm,
are better than at some women better than some women at doing some things. At the
mhm,
end of the day, it's like, you guys have to figure that out. And at the end of the day, it's about, in my personal point of view, equity rather than equality. Like there's some things that should be based on equality, but at the end of the day, it's equity. So it's about the energy you're putting in. If you're putting about the same amount of energy, but maybe in different ways, I feel like that's what makes an equilibrium in a marriage and makes it more successful. So considering that, I think is important when thinking about wanting to get married.
yeah.
Love that. I agree.
I think I have one more point. I have seen people, they have like their whole criteria written and they know clearly what they want out of marriage, but I feel like it's also important to leave a room for flexibility because you're never going to get exactly what you want from a marriage. And you could have that idea of um, like what could be the flaws and what you could compromise on, but they won't necessarily be the things that the other people want you to compromise on, right? So you could say that, oh, if he's like if he like washes the dishes and stuff, like if he knows how to do all the housework, then I'll cook. And or like you have those kind of things already in your mind where it's like, oh, I'll compromise on this rather than that. um but those compromisations again are very subjective to everyone, so you have to try to leave a room for flexibility to understand the other individual and try to come up with compromises together. And if those things are not compatible, then I guess you shouldn't follow through, but look for that compatibility.
Mhm.
I think that really leads nicely into the next question, like what
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
said.
Wait,
Perfect.
but I just wanted to add, don't even when like Maheen's talking about compromise, right? Don't be negative and do not think of it as a sacrifice. You know,
Yeah, it's not a sacrifice.
do not say sacrifice. Like literally, just think of it as a compromise because you're compromising some stuff. He's gonna compromise some stuff. Don't think of it. Oh, I had to sacrifice this for him. Do not think
That
like
will lead to resentment. If
that.
somebody actually
Mhm.
feels that way, they're gonna feel resentful
Yeah.
towards their partner, and
Yeah.
so it's a horrible thing being resentful.
Mhm. What are some qualities that you look for in a potential spouse, and what are some deal breakers for you?
I feel like this is very, very subjective, like to the individual, their culture, their environment, their goals, their view on religion, right? What you're looking for in a spouse. For example, if it was for me, my personal view would be that I need someone who has good knowledge on the deen, because I know if he knows his rights and he knows his responsibilities towards Allah, and he will be able to like raise a good family with me and he will be able to treat me right. So my first priority would be the deen. um Other people might have like, oh, their education level next or something like that. For me it's like more their maturity level, their personal characteristics, how they deal with people, how they talk to people, their etiquette. Um, but again, it's a very subjective thing. Um, and I think that for me, there are not a lot of deal breakers. Um, there shouldn't be a lot of deal breakers because I feel like that's like saying that one quality of a person makes the whole person a bad person,
Mhm.
right? Like if they have one flaw and you focus on that, then that means like you can't compromise or like try to grow with them. So I think maybe one of the deal breakers would be something like something very extreme, like if they're abusive or if they have like any toxic traits like narcissism or anything like that. Something that's a clear red flag, that would be a deal breaker for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't really be focusing on like minor details. But that's my view on it.
Okay.
So Islam says what you're supposed to look for in a spouse are number one, at least for the female looking for a male, it's deen wa khuluq. So religion and how would you even translate khuluq?
Akhlaaq, like
Akhlaaq, yeah, but what's the English word?
mannerism.
Mannerism, yeah. So those are the two things. So for me, deal breakers, that would be it. If you don't have deen, you don't have khuluq, that's a deal breaker. There's no point in this. Everything that comes after, I want to say, can be subjective. Again, what kind of marriage are you looking for? If you're looking for a traditional marriage, then I don't think you should be looking at financials, because you're going to be staying at home, and as long as the male can provide, which is one of the requirements in Islam, the male has to be able to financially provide to get married, then you shouldn't be looking at how much money he's making. That can be a personal preference, sure, depending on what you're looking for, but qualities in what is necessary is really that deen and khuluq. Other than that, you can start looking at other aspects that are important. Lineage is one that's a touchy subject. What I'll say to that is making sure that the families are compatible and the cultures can be compatible. That is my personal inference. Again, a lot of people will say, no, it's fine for cultures to mix. Again, it's how much effort are you willing to put? So for example, if I take my culture, which is Algerian, and even comparing it to something that is actually quite close, which is Palestinian, there's actually a lot of differences. Like, I talk to my family back home and we speak the Algerian dialect, which includes French. Sometimes it can include Berber. For a Palestinian, if they were to come into that group chat, they wouldn't understand anything we're talking about. So do you really want to deal with the two families having communication barriers? Again, it's harder for us, I think, as first generation immigrants, so to speak. Our parents were immigrants, we're the first generation. It's a lot more difficult to us because we didn't grow back home. So there is that disconnect of, I have this piece of Canadian culture that's part of my Islam, but my parents don't have it as much. And whoever I'm going to marry, are they going to be coming from also a Canadian culture with a cultural background from back home, or are they going to be straight from back home? It's very complex for our generation, is all I'm going to say. There's a lot of things to consider. So you really have to think of family not as from an individualistic basis. From an individualistic basis, you're just going to think about yourself. It's like, oh, great, I like that guy, he's got deen and khuluq. Great, whatever. Families don't get along, not a big deal. But you have to think about, is this a marriage where you want to have children? How are your children going to be brought up? Are they going to be able to connect with both sides of the cultures? Are they going to be able to connect with both sides of the families? Is your mom or dad, are they going to feel comfortable coming to visit during holidays or things like that, right? There's a lot to consider in terms of families, and this is really a huge problem, not so much problem, but kind of dilemma that unfortunately us as first gens have to deal with when considering marriage. So I think on those 3 points, that's really what I would base the main overall picture of criteria.
So I pretty much agree with both of my sisters over here in Islam. The one thing too I want to elaborate on is this Sarah was talking about regarding the importance of culture and language. It's actually interesting you mentioned that because I have a different perspective. Because what I've noticed, like my closest friends aren't from the same culture as I am. The thing that connects us are our level of religiosity and the way we view the world. So I don't care what language you speak, what culture you come from. If you eat bananas with like eggs, whatever you do, like that's fine. Like I have more of a connection with
That's
somebody
a real good example of how to get salmonella.
of like I have more of an interest in a person who views Islam in the same way I do. I'm Palestinian, and there's a lot of people in my culture I cannot stand because we have very different views, and some people are very superior like in their views and try to assimilate to Western ideals and adopt this idea of like secularism, and I can't see myself in a relationship with somebody like that. But then I have like my best friend, Algerian, Kurdish, Afghan, and we get along because we have the same level of religiosity and the same outlooks on life. So this is what is key for me. Like I was like thinking, I don't know how to answer this because till this day, like I don't really know what I'm looking for. I just want to chill. Like honestly, somebody to just like chill, just like get along with each other. That's what I look for. Of course, I want somebody to be mature enough to be able to provide for a family. These are like essential things, but at the end of the day, I just want to like to have like a friend in that kind of sense, like somebody I get along with. And yeah, it's not that big of a deal. Like I said, if you have weird eating habits, I'm okay with that. As long as
Yeah.
we see eye to eye. And like I did take a like personality course in psychology, and in one of the courses it was talking about like what are the predictors of a successful marriage, and like some of the predictors included like same level of religiosity, also same like similar types of political views. Like those were the two that I remember. There were other factors that increase the likelihood of a successful relationship, but I actually feel like that still holds true, like for me personally. So
I agree with you, Halabi. Like for me, that's something that's like I care about religion, and like as long as we see eye to eye in religion, because none of like most of my friends are literally like not from my culture or my mom's culture, I would like to say, because I don't I it's sometimes it's hard for me to associate with being a Pashtun, and it's hard. I don't even speak the language properly. Like I have to tell my mom to translate in English because I don't know what she's saying. Um, and it's that's something that I agree with. And also, for me, I look at the same qualities as Sarah Hamza. Like it needs to be Deen, and Akhlaaq and all that kind of stuff. But one thing that I that's really really important to me is, are they giving? Are they stingy with their money? Because the moment they're super stingy and everything like that, and they don't have a big heart, like that's problematic for me, because I'm the type of person that I have a big heart. I'm not stingy. I like to give back to the community. I like to give back to people, and I like to make people happy. And if someone's not going to help me or support me in doing that, then I don't see a life with them, because I've made my life being about supporting other people too, and making other people like being there for other people, and having a big heart. That's what I've been living my life. That's how
I
I've been
think
living my
there's
life.
like an ayah in the Quran about that as well, about stinginess. I don't know if it's a hadith or an ayah in the Quran. I'm like
Yeah.
80% sure it's an ayah in the Quran, but it's like talking about stinginess too. And it's not like, oh, Yasmin said that she's a gold digger. As you can see, she clarified and said that it's like giving back to the community, like doing these types of things. Because at the end of the day, too, like I'm the same way as Yasmin. Like I like to give. Strongly believe like every time I give to charity or something, like I get a lot more back somehow, like mysteriously. And so it's not that I give to charity for that purpose, like I expect something in return, but it's like when you give, Allah blesses you with more. Like you're not supposed to be hoarding your money. You're supposed to spend it because like you could die tomorrow literally, and you hoarded that money for what reason? Like it's important to have a safety and security net, but at the same time, like you're also like you work hard.
Yeah,
So
there's a whole surah about that one.
oh, okay. Thank you.
I was just gonna say, other than Deen and Khuluq, really one key thing to look at, and I should have just summarized my answer earlier like this because I went off on a tangent on culture, but it's values and goals. You want to make sure you have the same values. You want to make sure you have the same goals. If you guys are not on a path where you're trying to achieve similar goals, they don't have to be the same, but they should be similar, then you guys are both going to be growing in different directions, and there's no point.
Can you define goals though? Because somebody might say like, oh, I want to become an astronaut. Does that mean like my wife needs to become an astronaut? What do you like? I know what you mean by
Yeah.
goals, but just can you explain it so somebody doesn't get
Like maybe I think like what she means is by like checkpoints in life that you want to reach. Like for example, if you want to have like 10 kids and they just want to have like one kid, and your view is that your like family like is really important to you, and having a community and stuff is really important to you, and for them it's like, oh, more child support, all that stuff, like it's like disturbing our relationship having kids, then it's like completely different, right? And then at the same time, if it's like someone who is content with just like um living where they are in a simple house, just staying where they are for the rest of their life. And then, for example, if you want to travel different places, want to work abroad, want to work as a humanitarian, right? Like, if you have those kind of differences, then it's like when you try to go and try to achieve your goals, there's going to be something that's going to be holding you back, and they're going to be like, oh, it's not really important to me, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I can give a personal example of this. One of my goals is to have a farm. So I want horses, I want cows, I want the
She
whole
wants goats
shebang.
too.
Yeah.
She loves goats. Is it good?
Yes. So for somebody to come and tell me, hey, I don't want animals, I'll be like, okay, well, that's not similar goals, because I'm sorry, one of my goals is to have a farm. But he could be like, hey, one of my goals is to own land. So guess what? He may not have the exact same goal as owning a farm, but he still
Yeah.
has that ideal of owning land. And those two types of goals can still mesh together.
Yeah, I think so thank you for like I know what you meant, but I just
Yeah.
wanted everyone else to be clear on that. Is that not that the goals have to be exactly the same, but like for at
Mhm.
least for them to be compatible, and it's not necessarily like career goals or whatever goals. It's just like Maheen said about like milestones, and then also what you said, it can be about goals, but as long as they mesh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think cool story.
Do you guys have anything else to share? Deal breakers. Anything that you want to add?
Obviously sisters, if he like drinks alcohol and like
Okay.
Yeah, that's like Dean and Khodok. It's
you
like
know
you don't
what,
have those.
if he does it like privately and it's something he's struggling with and wants to overcome, like maybe that's something you can think about. But I mean, if it's something he's outwardly saying he does,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
and
and doesn't want to change.
also like when it comes to prayer, like I strongly believe the person I want to get married to like prays all their prayers, but if they're having struggles praying Fajr, for example, and they
Yeah.
want to get better, it's not like I'm gonna say no, halas,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
X on you. No, it's just like maybe that's
Yeah.
something he's working on, and if if I see that he's actually working on it, then that's great. But yeah, I just
That's
remember one time like somebody did, this is when I was like a bit younger. He asked to get to know me for marriage, and the first thing I asked is whether he prays, and he said no, but he wants me to help him, and I'm like, no, sorry, I can't. Like, I'm not here to like make you a
Yeah.
mufti. Like,
that's
you
Yeah.
an
have some
excellent point.
cases. Like maybe I wouldn't be so savage now, but like um
I
I'm
feel
like,
like this is like something that I've noticed a lot, where like there's like, I don't want to say, like, I don't want to sound rude, but there's some men out there that are like, oh, they live their life doing whatever they want, partying, doing that, and then they expect to get married to someone who's like pure, and
Oh
then
yeah.
so that they can like become pure, like have her help them.
but
And
that's
like that's something, like even like mothers when they're looking for wives for their sons, who are like that, they look for, because like it's, I find it so twisted, because like if you're raising your son that way, why are you looking for someone to fix him when you couldn't, right? So that's one thing that like really bothers me when men are
Yeah.
like that.
Never
you're
Yeah.
go into a
100%
marriage.
right. Like when the guy has a lot of feelings and like wants that target, he will become mufti mink at that point,
Yeah.
like for the girl. But people need to realize, and this goes back to like the beginning questions, those feelings dissipate. Like there's like intense emotion when you're first getting to know someone, but these things dissipate, and what stays is your characteristics. That's why character is so important. So yeah, like I don't like it when somebody's like, "Oh, can you save me?" Like I'm not here to save you. You have to have did some introspection to at least
Mm.
do some steps on your own to want to change. I'm not going to save you, just like you're not going to save me. We all have to be doing introspection. I might help you in the beginning when those feelings are heightened or whatever, but those things sort of pass. And are you going to still continue that when they're past? Like,
Yeah, do
That's
not
a
go
really
into a marriage expecting to change someone.
yeah.
If they can't change for themselves, they will only temporarily change for you and it
Mhm.
will not last.
Yeah, that's a really important point, because I've seen like girls who are like, oh, he's becoming like more religious for me. He's like praying, like now he's talking to
For
me
me,
and he's like, yeah.
not
And
for
that
Allah,
like,
for me.
and the thing is, if you're, I don't know, if you're in that relationship, you might see that as a good thing, that, oh, he's becoming like more closer to the deen and stuff. But the way that women view it and the way that men view it is completely different. Like, you might be seeing that he's improving, but the way he's seeing is that like men are very goal oriented, like they're very target oriented. And basically, like, for them, it's like just like they're doing this to get you, and their goal is to get you. And if once they get you, those things that they've been doing just to like chase after you, they're going to start going away, because they weren't as genuine.
And
But
since
at the same time, it's like very like complex, because you have to very like judge the situation very well. You need to know who his friends are, who he hangs out with, and
so
to see if he's actually genuinely changing, or if he's again just doing it to chase you. Because I have seen instances where it's been like that. I've seen people convert for people and then have that goal completely like like just completely destroy their relationship. So that's very,
that's so important. Like another thing too that I'm reminded of when you're speaking, subhanAllah, like these thoughts come
yeah,
when, other people are saying such inspiring
yeah,
things, and then you think of something like you thought about. I'm not like, there are a lot of good men out there, alhamdulillah, especially our Muslim brothers. There's a lot of amazing
mhm,
men. There are some too that are looking to manipulate a girl and make her feel like she's like the only one, the special one, and all these different things, and string her along without getting married, right?
mhm,
They try to
Yeah.
string her along. They'll say, oh, you know what, like, in 2 years I'll be ready to get married, but I want to get to know you, and like all these different things without talking to the parents. They don't want to talk to the parents.
mhm,
Girls, please, like,
Involve your
cut
parents.
that out. Involve your parents. Tell your parents right away. Like, tell at least your siblings or somebody like you
mhm,
trust, because most likely this guy, he most likely is just trying to string you along, trying to make you fall for him, and then try his best to take advantage of you.
mhm,
I'm not saying all of them. I told you there's a lot of good brothers out there, and some also, might not be ready to get married in 2 years, whatever that actually means. But you have to
mhm,
look at yourself, like, from an Islamic perspective, like, Islam saves women. People say
mhm.
Islam oppresses women. Islam saves us from being oppressed, because if
Yeah,
we
Absolutely.
follow the Islamic rules, we won't be oppressed. That's the
yeah,
my major point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Is that a heart for me?
Yeah.
yeah. Islam protects us a lot in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I agree. Snap, snap, snap. Yeah. So let's say you want to get married, right? What are the steps you would take?
oh, um, me. So yeah, this is where you have to like figure out if you're looking for someone or if you have someone in mind already. There's like different ways you would approach this. I don't know how you would go about like, I think if you know you have someone, or you have someone that's like a potential person, I think you should be clear about what you want, and clear about like marriage. If you're talking to that person, or if you have a friend, um, I think it's a lot of people say it's very like weird to like be straight up and say, okay, I like you, and I'm like, um I think this could like go forwards and towards marriage and stuff. Like, it's weird, but like I think you really need to be straightforward with everything, because again, with what Hadabi said, like when guys could be stringing you along and you don't know that.
Mhm.
So if they are actually genuinely looking to talk to you for marriage, then you should be mentioning your parents and like getting your parents involved. And I think that's the one way to see that he's committed or not, if he agrees to meeting either your parents or your siblings. Parents might be too front, like if he's still trying to find a job or something and he thinks like, hey, like I can't approach your parents if I don't have a job, which is fair. But if you can approach your siblings or someone in your family and talk and be open about marriage, then that's a good sign. So again, what you guys said, getting parents involved is the first thing to do if you have someone in mind. And if the guy agrees, then going forwards with that. Um, and yeah, that's what I have to say. That's like the first few steps I would take. And then the rest is like up to your families and what you guys decide.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, like Maheen said and had to be said, parental involvement is number one. Honestly, if ideally I wouldn't even like the second someone's interested, I'd be like, okay, great. Please let your parents know. They can call my parents, and then from there, if they approve, we can go ahead and start talking and get to know each other.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that that's it. You're going to get married to them, but at least you have that first step of consent.
Mhm.
And again, I understand that with some parents, this can actually be very difficult. So again, with this whole societal and globalization issue coming in, especially with our generation, these things can be difficult. Like for you to just go up to your mom or your dad and be like, "Hey, this guy wants to talk to me." They may just see that, "Oh, hey, he doesn't have a PhD, so no." Or, "Hey, I think I heard one thing about his like grandfather, so no." Like they
Mhm.
won't even, they'll close the door before even going into things that are important like deen and khuluq, and giving that person a chance. So it can be difficult. So I'm just going to say, in an ideal situation, get your parents involved ASAP.
Mhm.
I really like how you contextualize that, Sada, because like a lot of people, not just in our own culture, but like in Western culture as well, they do have family problems, and it's not as easy. Like I'm very grateful, alhamdulillah, like with my family and parents, they don't make marriage difficult for me.
Mhm.
But with others, like it's some like messed up stuff going on, and that's
Mhm.
a part of the problem too with like marriages in general. For example, some like meher is absolutely insane, the amount of money like that is asked for upon men. And then this translates into like a lot of other societal issues, like
Mhm.
because a man can't afford that or can't be ready and genuinely is scared to talk to the parents because of that purpose. This results in so many negative issues like zina, so many different society, and this is a social problem like that we need to reevaluate within our communities,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, him giving 50,000, 30,000, 20,000, expecting that amount of money for him to pay for your daughter is not going to guarantee her a happy life. What's going to
Yeah.
guarantee her a happy life is his khula, his Islam, his ability to take care of her, support her, etc. Not that
Mhm.
money. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't mean he can't support a family. That's just ridiculous. Some people actually go into debt for that,
Mhm. Mhm.
further destabilizing. So let's go back to the question.
You don't remember it, do you?
Hey,
um,
what?
What steps would you take if you wanted to get married?
oh, so I personally, this is, I sort of like would do the same thing as Sada before, but like getting parents involved right away, as a test to see like what they would say. But I wouldn't necessarily bring my parents right away. I would sort of talk to the person for like a month or 2 months, and then like get parents involved after that to see if we're compatible, like speaking to each other. Um, and like Sada mentioned, it when you request to get parents involved, first of all, that should be coming from the guy. Like the girl shouldn't even have to.
Yeah.
Second of all, it's not that you're getting married, it's that you're being respectful towards the girl and her family by letting them know that you're actually serious about their daughter. And a lot of times like people will try to be like, oh, it's too early, blah
Yeah.
blah blah. I'm
Yeah.
like, bro, are you like assimilating into this Western ideology of relationships? Because that's not how it works from an Islamic perspective. You
Mhm.
like parents should know. And again, parents make it hard as well, as Sada mentioned, because like sometimes you tell parents like they're like, oh, it's mabruk, like when's the wedding day, or like no, like
Yeah.
parents need to know that too, like this is just for getting to know. It's respectfully like letting the person's respectfully letting you know he wants to get to know me. It doesn't
Mhm.
mean we're gonna get married. It might not work, but the fact that you know shows a lot from that person, like what kind of person they are.
Mhm.
What else? I think that's it. That's the steps I would take.
Mhm.
Like talk to the person first,
Mhm.
parental involvement early on.
Yeah. I'm
Mhm.
very similar to Halabi as well. Like I would talk to the person first before getting parents involved. But while I'm talking to them, I'd make sure like a sibling knows. Like similar to Maheen,
Mhm.
I'd make sure that someone knows that yeah, I am talking to someone because I don't. I don't want it to be. I want to make sure that I'm also like wanting to bring them to my parents, you know, like oh, like I'm not gonna I can't tell them like yeah go to my parents and then waste my parents' time to, and then next thing you know we find out it's something that it's not compatible, right? It's just I just feel like yeah there's probably more baraka and more, it's probably more halal to have your parents involved right at the beginning, and but just from my experience and the things that I've seen I feel more comfortable uh,
Mhm.
taking my own independent route first and then getting the parents involved, because then the moment you get your parents involved like it's like you can't communicate that much, it's like it becomes super shy and like you guys know what I mean.
Well, it
Yeah.
depends what you mean by communicate, because you can just tell your parents, hey, this guy would like to talk to me and get to know me. They may, it really depends on the family. They may be like, okay, have their family over and then we'll both talk.
Yeah.
Or they could be like, okay, great, you can keep talking to him on messages or whatever, just as long as we're aware that you guys are talking.
Yeah.
Again, depends on the family. You can come from a very
Mhm.
strict family where they'll be like, the only time you guys are allowed to talk is this one dinner where you guys can sit like in a little corner, have a discussion. Or it could be a completely different family that says, yeah, go ahead, you can text, you can have phone calls, and then when you think it's a good time, we can have the family over.
Mhm.
And I really think this is like a value that shouldn't be compromised, because sometimes feelings can get in the way of decision making, and you might be like, okay, like maybe we don't have to get parents involved right away or something, and they can drag into something like
Mhm.
not good. So I think there are some of our values that Maheen mentioned in the beginning that can be compromised to a certain degree. Not right. Is that what you mentioned? Sort of. You
Yeah.
touched on that, right? But I feel like there are some values of ours based and rooted in Islamic principles that are meant to protect us as women that we should not
Mhm.
compromise. And I feel like, you know, parental involvement is one of those things. And usually it's the people that are not serious that don't want to get parents involved. And it's a good
Yeah.
indicator. And like going back to what Maheen and Sada said as well, and if they can't, if they're too embarrassed, maybe because they're financially not ready, right? Then have them talk to a sibling who's understandable. Or, you know, some people are not blessed with good siblings, a
Mhm.
good friend at least, somebody, or maybe a sheikh, going to a sheikh in
Hmm.
the community and
Mhm.
talking to them about it, right? Like as long as, you know, this person is showing you that they're serious, because a lot of times, unfortunately,
Mhm.
some people, they don't want to be serious, they just want to fling, and they
Mhm.
make a whole like drama, like Bollywood drama out of it, like,
Yeah.
you know, this fakeness, and they actually believe it for a little. I don't know, like it's
Yeah.
just confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Islam saves us from those kinds of things, and I think those are things we shouldn't compromise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely. And I guess if you're looking to get married as well, as well as just family involvement, the other thing you should really do is ask in the community about them.
Mhm.
Like the girls mentioned earlier, ask about their friends, get to know who their friends are, what are they like, talk
Mhm.
to their siblings, talk to their families. You really want to get an outside perspective on who this person is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's part of the issue. Like, okay, looking at friends, that's one thing, that's a really good indicator. but I'm sort of on the fence about asking about that person because
Same.
unfortunately nowadays, especially, like, I feel like in the past things might have been different historically, but like now people make up rumors about others and it's become truth. We don't follow that Islamic principle by believing from what we see and hear, not like personally from that person, but we actually learned to believe things that we hear about people coming from another source, and that
Yeah.
is be completely inaccurate, and I wouldn't want to like hurt someone based on that or judge them based on that. Like I would want to judge them based on our own interactions, but I think also taking things like that into consideration are important, but shouldn't be like
Yeah.
tell us like no, like this person's not good because X and Y said they're not good. But I do think what a better indicator is who the person's friends are.
Yeah, I
Because
think I'm gonna add on to that as well because one thing in Islam is that you are not obligated to disclose your past because that means that the other people are judging you based on sins you may have been forgiven for, right? And so that's one thing. When you ask around in the community, people may have known the person at different times, at different circumstances, and they may have done things that they weren't proud of then. And you might be just like bombarding yourself with a lot of negative information that does is not relevant anymore to the individual, right? So one thing is that like the greatest indicator, again, like how we said, like their current friends, their current environment. If you know that they have done things in the past, but they are different now, it would be reflective in the people that they hang out with right now and what people they hang out right now say about them. So that's one thing because I've seen a lot of things. Like I've had people who've had these experiences where they reject people because on the basis of one or two things that happened to them in their past, and that's wrong because that's like you're judging them on sins that you don't know if they have been forgiven for or not, and that is a sin on you, right? So only Allah can judge people, so you need to be judging them on what they are, their actions right now and who they hang out with right now. And so that's
mashallah,
yeah.
Yes, I
such
agree.
a good point, like such a good add-on. Like the fact, on top of what I had said, the fact that people do change. And
Mhm.
like we should also really take that into consideration. Some people believe that people do not change, but that's completely false. People do change. Allah bihdi men what's I don't
من يشاء الله يهدي من يشاء.
yeah, so you don't know when that happens or how that happens, but that does happen. So thank you so much for like enlightening me and reminding me of that important point about change.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to add because that since we're talking about this, um, well, no, the things that we were talking about before this, um, when you are going in, when you want to take the steps to get married to someone and you're talking to them, and let's say you choose the path that you want to talk to them first, make sure they have the knowledge that yes, I'm talking to you, but I'm talking to you with the intention of getting to know you for marriage. And like
Mhm.
you need to make those things clear. And even while you're doing that, like listen to what Maheen said. Make sure you don't judge them. Like they might open to you about their past because they feel like some people feel like you need to know, but they want to tell you that because they want to be an open book, but do not judge them based off of that. And also look at their friends and uh, like talk to their friends. And yeah, just have an open heart and open mind, but don't let anyone take advantage of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Any other
What
things
do
that,
you think? What do you guys think someone should do if they are don't have someone and they're looking to get married? Like, what do you think the steps would be in that case?
I would think
That
like they go to an imam or like a religious figure in the community they trust and
Mhm.
get them involved. If they don't have family, you mean? Like, or
Yeah, just in general, like if one of us wants to get married and we don't have anyone and we're trying to look for spouses, like where would we look? Because a
oh,
lot of times, like
never mind. I
yeah,
thought
a
I
lot of times, like
don't
there's
go to an imam for that. No, stop.
there's some of us who don't have a large social group, so we can't really ask around like, oh, do you know like anyone in my age, like we can't do that. So then where would they go? Like what would they do?
It's honestly a very difficult question to answer because it's such a big problem in our communities
Mm-hmm.
nowadays. Back in the day, it was families knew each other, so they'd set people up. Whereas now that we've immigrated, a lot of our families are back home or
Yeah.
they're dispersed across the globe. So it's difficult to pair people together. The other thing is, a lot of people aren't really open to having their families try and set them up with people. So there's so many different routes. A
Mhm.
lot of people are going towards online to find people.
Mhm.
A lot are just finding them through school. Others through family, through friends, and it's just very problematic nowadays to try and find someone. Because again, the same way we said in the beginning that there's so many different types of marriages now.
Mhm.
Um, it's really narrowing down finding the right person that's going to fit into your new type of marriage
Yeah.
versus back in the day there was one type of marriage. It was a lot easier to narrow down. So
Mhm.
I don't have an answer for you or for anyone as to where can you find a spouse. All I can tell you is honestly make dua and talk to
Mhm.
your family and friends. If there is anyone, they'll come around.
Who knows? He might bump into you in the aisle of no frills. Don't.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like every girl's fantasy, like bump into a guy and it's like, oh, can I have your dad's number?
Yeah.
Never know. You might drop an apple. He might pick it up and be like, "Here, Habibti, Baba's number."
If he's calling you Habibti in the no frills aisle, there's an
I don't
issue.
think so. Uh,
Well, also, like, you could also ask an imam and be like, "Hey, I'm looking for someone, and if anyone has come to you and is you might think is compatible with me, like if you know the imam really well, maybe they could help." Also, check in your community. Some communities, especially now, they have a lot of single sessions. Go
yeah.
to
Yeah.
Go to those Muslim single sessions. The imams will hook you up. You never know who you'll find. I haven't rejected anyone yet because I haven't, like, my mom has done all the rejections for me. Yeah. I was 17, my brother's wedding. Someone comes up to me, they're like, "Hi." I'm like, "Hello." And then they're like, "What's your number?" And I'm like, you can talk to my mom. I'm not giving you my number. Why do I have to give you my number? I don't know you." And this is me, 17 years old, being super bold. And then she's like, "Oh, okay." And then I told my mom, like, "Did this person ask you for my number?" And then I'm like, and then she's like, "No." She's like, "What did you say to them?" And then I'm like, "I said this to them." And she was like, "Good, you were bold. Good job. Good job." And I'm like,
I had that happen to me in when I went for Hajj the first time. And we
Mhm.
were just sitting, me and my mom, and then this older lady was like, "Oh, mashallah, like I have this son, he's an engineer, he's doing this, blah blah blah." And my mom looks at her and she's like, "She's 13." She's like, "Oh."
Oh man.
Yeah,
Oh.
I've been proposed to at 14 as well.
"Oh,
Oh.
A grandma was asking me for her grandson because
oh."
she really liked me, but I guess I looked older at 14, or
I know, I guess we just, yeah, I don't know what happened.
well, my mom had to respectfully refuse. So it was
Oh, that's funny.
Maheen.
Anyways, let's end it off. Thank you guys for listening. And I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, Maheen. Thank you, Sarah Hamza. Thank you, Sarah Halabi, for joining us today. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to comment. You can also DM us if you're too shy, and we'll keep it anon. And if you have a question specifically towards any of the guests today, let me know, and I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be shy to answer the question for you, and then I will forward it to them, and then I'll forward it back to you.
As
So yeah,
long as it's not really weird.
yes.
Yeah. Don't ask for my wrist size.
Or my bone structure. Because I already have arthritis, so you don't need to worry about that.
Anyways, yeah, so thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time. Everyone
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
cover your cameras.
Oh.
Okay.